position like this so quickly. When you sacrifice material, like for example an H-pawn to get an attack going there, you don't want to end up in endgame positions very soon. So also here again I was happy to see that my opponent still didn't play pawn to e5, but he played queen to e5, and here I had some troubles getting the right idea. I was thinking I don't want to trade queens, so maybe queen to d2. Trying to get on a6 later on was a possible idea. I looked at queen to f3, because of course there is no pawn to g5 since the pawn on h5 would be hanging. But then I found the most brilliant move of the entire game, I think. At least I and my opponent agreed in our analysis after the game that queen g4 here was the only move that would possibly win back the pawn. Ancients say black should play queen d4 here, pinning the knight on f4. So I still can't sacrifice my knight on h5 and try to get a quick checkmate in. But he played pawn to e6, and this was the point I thought, okay, I just take on h5. This is now because my queen is on g4 and it's on the same file as the king of black. So after black recaptures, I can recapture and I won back just a pawn. So I thought here, okay, the h-pawn of black is gone. I'm not down a pawn any longer, so I'm just doing fine here. And actually I am. My opponent here played a move which should win a rook, at least for me, though I didn't find that line. He should still have played queen d4, trying to trade off queens, or win the d3 pawn and maybe later on the c4 pawn. This would be his best chance. Well, he played queen to takes on b2, so black is still up a pawn. And here I got some ideas mixed up, and I should have played, of course, rook h7, though the lines where rook h7 win aren't that easy to see. For example, if I would have played, this would be the normal continuation, and here white is up a rook, but I didn't want my opponent to let his king escape. Although I'm up a rook now, so it shouldn't be a problem. Okay, I didn't play rook h7. I thought I didn't want my opponent to take on d5, so I took myself on e6. Also with the idea that he has to recapture with his rook. And after he did that, I still played rook h7, which now isn't the best. Yeah, it is the best move of this position still, but it isn't as good as it was before. Okay, so what is going on here? Oh, well, not much is actually going on. Of course, there is still a threat of queen h4, which threatens to checkmate or at least win heavy material. So my opponent thought, wait, okay, I see the checks coming up and me losing the rook on f8, so he thought, okay, why wouldn't I move the rook and protect it with my other rook, so I won't lose the material. Well, the idea is indeed correct, and here I still should have played queen to h4, which is the most clinical move. The move I played was the best move to show the pressure I have on the king side of my opponent, because he does have, of course, dark square weaknesses, and I have two rooks on the h file, putting pressure over there on h8, and of course there is a threat of on f7. So here I played not queen h4, I played queen f4. Here is the nice little tactic for me, that of course I threaten checkmate in one, but also I threaten queen to h6, which then again threatens rook h8, and black is actually, white is actually doing fine there, and black is totally lost. This position is about +1.5 for me, so although I'm down a pawn, I am now, according to engines, going to win at least 2 pawns back. So my opponent, well, he of course also has options here. The question is, what should he do here? Options like queen to f6 or rook to f6 won't work, because, for example, rook to f6, well, of course, then check, and after king there, then that would be checkmate. So that's no option, and if queen goes there, then of course I can take with my queen and after recapture the same idea. So those aren't really options. So what are the options that black has here? I threatened checkmate on f7, so, well, rook going back isn't really an option, because then after queen h6, checkmate can't be far away. So rook 8 to e7 to protect the pawn also wouldn't do much good, due to the same idea. The best move here should be pawn to f5. Though still after queen to h6 and rook to h8, I think black is doing fine here. There aren't any serious troubles in the position, and white will recapture at least 1, maybe 2 pawns later on. So okay, my opponent here played the move rook 8 to e7, after which I of course had to play the move queen to h6, and the position is totally won for me here. I now have 3 pieces on the h file, where black has actually only the queen defending on the diagonal. So after rook check, queen takes, it will be checkmate. So black is forced to play certain moves here. If black tries to, for example, move pawn to f5, trying to create an escape route, well, that wouldn't work out, because after rook check and king to f7, then there would be queen to f8, checkmate. So in this position, my opponent noticed that the position was lost for him, so he played the very desperate move, which still, according to engines, is the best, which is queen takes on f2. Well, just sacrificing a queen is very desperate. Maybe he could try to get in a lot of checks, but after rook to e2 and king to f3 he resigned, because now threats like queen to g7, rook to h8, the threats are just too obvious and the position is totally lost. He could have continued with moves like rook to e3, but it will still be a checkmate in, I believe, 6 is this position, which will be as following. And of course more sacrificing of material just to extend the checkmate. And yes, well, actually there wasn't that much black could do anymore at the time I played queen h6. Okay, well, that was my game of last Friday. I enjoyed it very much, mainly because of the nice attacking lines I got through sacrificing my h3 pawn. Well, let's continue to the position where everything went to hell. This position. In this position, is there a line where black would be better? Does anyone know? Does anyone spot lines which, of course, pawn to e6 isn't the best move, but is queen d4 better for black in this position, or is white still regaining the pawn and containing the pressure? Does anyone know? Share it on YouTube, comments and questions on YouTube, and thank you all very much.